Let's talk football on the Monty Show. The Pac-12 is in chaos after an absolutely, frenetic weekend. And I think we have to start with Oregon and Washington. Michael Penix Jr. was everything you wanted. Bo Nix was not. And I think Dan Lanning has to wear a significant amount of responsibility for this loss by Oregon. Listen, take nothing away from what Washington did. Take nothing away from Michael Penix absolutely dropping dimes all over that Oregon defense. He got hit in a way that he had not been hit in a very long time, and yet Washington still won the game, and it is because Dan Lanning made terrible decisions at the end of the first half, at the end of the game, to not even throw the ball in the end zone one time with the game on the line in the red zone is unforgivable. Jake, how much responsibility do you put on Dan Lanning for this Oregon loss?
Yeah, I think that clock management obviously was a big issue for Dan in this game, and I think about this as one of the biggest, if not the biggest, depending on what kind of bowl game you get, matchup on your schedule, right? Oregon, Washington, college football playoff implications, certainly Heisman implications. Like, this is one of those games where you can't have clock management issues. You can't have, hey, we didn't execute the right way because we didn't take any shots at the end zone issues. You can't have, hey, we just didn't get the job done because of whatever. You can't have that in this game. And I look at Oregon and I say, hey, this is a team that is more than capable of winning that game. This is a team that for the most part, I would say 60, maybe 70% of the game, if we want to be generous, played a fine game. But when it mattered most, you did not play a fine game. You did not execute. I mean, the idea that you didn't take any shots, the idea that you were in a position where you were having to chase Washington is crazy to me. And then what do? You chase Washington, you run them down, and then you give it up. And I don't know. I always knew that this game was going to come down to, hey, our defense is going to have to get a stop to win this game when you're on the road at Washington. You always knew that's how Oregon was going to have to win this game, but it wasn't good enough. And yeah, did Bo Nix have some average-ass quarterbacking in this game? Yes, he did. The numbers say he had a great game. 337, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like, the numbers say he had a nice game. But he didn't have that over-the-top great game that you knew they were going to need to win this one. So, I don't know. I think that Michael Penix Jr. deserves a hell of a lot of credit in this game. I'm talking about accurate, precise, putting the ball exactly where you want to put it for a quarterback. Like, it's his Heisman Trophy to lose, in my opinion, at this point. That was an absolutely outstanding performance. But I just think that for Dan Lanning, this is what I was talking about when I said, hey, if you're going to talk a bunch of junk to other teams in the conference and you're going to be that guy, then you better be the same guy when you lose. And you lost the game you can't lose. So I don't really feel sorry for Dan Lanning because he didn't do his job. Just the same way that other coaches we're going to talk about didn't do their job this week. And that's as simple as it gets for Dan Lanning right now.
Yeah, and I think, again, I want to make sure that we're getting this right. Washington was the better team. Michael Penix, I thought, was by far the better quarterback. I thought Washington played a hell of a game. There's no way, and you're going to hear from Dan Lanning here in a second, there's no way to spin the decisions that they were making, going for 3 or going for the touchdown or deciding not to kick the field goal, like just horrendous decisions, terrible clock management that put him in those situations. And Dan Lanning really just was not here for it after the game.
Those 2 fourth-down calls inside the 10, why were they the calls that you made?
Yeah, we felt, that was an opportunity for us to, get a touchdown, and a touchdown changes the game. And obviously, we're probably not talking about if we get a touchdown. That being said, the one before half is one where you really could go back and say, let's take that field goal. And it's something I'm going to assess, go evaluate for me. And we checked to see if we liked the look. We liked the look before we ran the play. We had a timeout if we didn't like the look. We liked the look, and we just didn't execute.
And listen, I think I just don't subscribe to that theory. I think when you're talking about, hey, do we like the look? There is no like the look. It's kick the field goal. You have to kick, especially at the end of the first half. You have got to kick that field goal. It's remarkable to me that we just are willing to sit here and say, well, Dan Lanning did the best. Like everybody on Twitter on Saturday was like, Dan Lanning did the best he could do in the moment. No, he didn't. Dan Lanning got exposed.
Yeah.
And I think Bo Nix got exposed. And I think Michael Penix Jr. exploded onto the Heisman Trophy scene because with what happened in South Bend with Caleb Williams, I think there's nobody else right now. If Caleb Williams hadn't, had the performance he had in a loss, if he had balled out and they still lost, okay, fine. They lost, and Caleb Williams was a big part of the reason SC lost. Michael Penix was the probably only reason that Washington won that game. And I think Michael Penix probably has taken over the Heisman Trophy run. But here's my problem. I think Oregon's a better team. Having watched just about every second of that game, I leave the Washington-Oregon game feeling like, hey, I think Oregon's a better team. If they make the right decision and kick the field goal at the end of the game, we're having a completely different conversation about this game. And to me, it's an Oregon win.
Yeah, and it really bothers me. Like I'm a big believer that whether it's at the end of a game or at the end of a half, whenever you can get points, you got to get those points. Like you never know, especially at the half, right? Like you never know what the second half has in store, right? Look at Colorado and Stanford. Best example of the weekend. Holy crap, we're up by a ton at the half, and then we get boat raced in the second half. So in this kind of game, when you've got two really even opponents here, and I would agree Oregon is probably the better team leaving the game, but going into the game, two pretty level opponents. Why would you not? Why force something? Take what you're given. It's the old quarterback adage, right? Check the ball down. Take the points. Live to fight another day. And it bothers me. Like on the final drive, like it didn't, like Bo Nix, I felt like on the final drive, just from a composure standpoint, represented himself well. But I don't think that Oregon offense represented themselves all that well at all. I didn't like the play calling. I didn't like the execution. I didn't like the, hey, let's get cute and call it a look. I didn't like much of the looks.
Those two misses by Bo Nix on that final drive are unthinkable. To not be able to gain just 5 more yards. Listen, again, I think I don't want to focus all of this on Oregon, but it's awfully difficult not to. I mean, just the lack of execution. Coming into the game of the year, without a doubt, is pretty shocking. And again, I know Bo Nix, everybody's going to say, oh, his numbers. If you watch that game, you don't feel like Bo Nix is even close to Michael Penix. I came away from that game feeling like Michael Penix Jr. is the best quarterback in the Pac-12. And that was cemented by Caleb Williams throwing just the 2 of the 3 were inexplicable interceptions. Like, I don't even know what you're looking at there. Just inexplicable. And I feel like Michael Penix should win the Heisman Trophy. If it were today, I feel like he should win the Heisman Trophy. It's unthinkable. It's unthinkable to me that you didn't kick that field goal at the end of the first half. And usually we go a lot further down the road here on this, but I want your thoughts on the Oregon-Washington game and how much blame do you put on Dan Lanning? Because when you're this even, Oregon and Washington are 2 really even teams. I think Oregon's slightly better. And I think, obviously, quarterback play in college 9 times out of 10 is going to determine who wins and loses. And I just think Michael Penix Jr. outplayed Bo Nix. And I'm curious, I would say out of 10 times, I think they would probably be pretty close to splitting 10. Mm-hmm. I truly do. I think I just am amazed. That field goal at the end of the first half is shocking. That they didn't kick. You're at the 3, just kick the field goal.
What really bothers me, too, and maybe this is personal for me, I don't know, but it bothers me that we're talking about a guy who wanted to play the PR game, right? He criticized someone for wanting to get clicks and did the same thing in his locker room. Then came out and played a game against a team that actually is his own size, if you will, and didn't do your job. You didn't execute. You're not that guy. And it bothers me because I was beginning to like Dan Lanning. I was like, all right, hey, maybe maybe I haven't given this guy a shot. Maybe, Oregon is a great team, and I still think they are a great team. I haven't lost that much respect for him. But Dan Lanning bothers me. It does bother me that you want to get cute with saying we liked the look, or like just say, hey, yeah, you know what, dude? Like, it is what it is. Yeah, the clock management wasn't great today. Yeah, we didn't execute. And what bothers me is in that clip, he's like, yeah, we just didn't execute after getting all cute and trying to use all this terminology. And it's like, dude, like, don't be that guy.
If they had simply done a better job with route decision making, throw the ball to the sideline.
Yeah.
On that final drive, if you go back, you look at where those balls were thrown, even if they're completed, you're probably in a difficult spot. I just thought Washington was better coached. I thought, and if we're truth telling, some of the notes I was taking during the game, I felt like Washington's defense was better positioned for a lot of the second half. They were just in better positions to win the game. And I give Washington a lot of credit, man, because I think everybody was in this game watching Oregon, and Washington stole your attention. And I think that you knew this Dan Lanning style of coaching eventually was going to come back to get you. And it's almost always in those real bright spotlights against teams that are even, or maybe you're just a little better, which again, my opinion is Oregon talent-wise is a little better. These are where the games where it comes back to get you. When you don't make the right decision consistently, and this has been my argument with Dan Lanning, I don't think he makes the right decision consistently. I don't think he manages the clock consistently. Now, that doesn't hurt you against Colorado, who you are a superior team to. It does not hurt you. It hurts you against Washington. And I got news for you. This year, the Colorado game's insignificant. The Washington game is the only one that mattered.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, if you look at the AP poll, apparently there was a whole lot of respect for Washington, because anybody noticed that, Oregon's just down one spot. They're down to 9. They're in great shape.
Yeah, I don't think that. Look, I when you dissect this game from an X's and O's standpoint, you begin to clearly understand that, hey, Oregon probably had 5 opportunities to win this game, I would say. And maybe more if you want to dive into the play calling or lack of play calling. But when you look at it from an AP standpoint, I agree with how they treated Oregon. This is a really close game. Washington made one more play at the end of the day, and that's how the game came down.
But then how do you explain Alabama?
Well,
and this is the one I'm willing to stand on this hill and fight.
Yeah.
Somebody explain to me how Alabama, who lost to Texas, can't get back into the top 10. They're just simply not allowed. There's a glass ceiling here. Does anybody truly believe that North Carolina is better than Alabama? And Alabama has just won their games, yet they're stuck at 11.
Yeah.
And the AP poll is fraudulent. And how is SC 18th? And I think that's too high. How are they 18th?
Yeah.
That I need an explanation for. How is Louisville still in the top 25? How are they 21? You're a team that had a lot of questions, and now you've lost. How are you still please? And the other one that's a real question mark here is LSU. I'm surprised LSU's all the way down at 19.
Mm-hmm.
I thought LSU would be much higher than that. All right, let's get your thoughts in here. Christopher Shannon. Alabama is not good. Oh, they're very good. I think, and this is, with all due respect, I'm going to guess you haven't watched much Alabama football because you said they are average with most talent. No, they are not average.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to the ass kicking I took on Jalen Milroe, because Jalen Milroe has validated everything I said about him.
Yeah, and I think everybody gave up on him early, right? And I think now what you're seeing is progression, and you're seeing Nick Saban coach this kid up. I mean, there's a reason, and we'll go through his numbers here, but there's a reason that people is this guy going to contend for, the Heisman? Is he going to be in that conversation later in the year? Well, he's working his way to that.
Yeah, and he's not running, he's throwing the football.
Yeah.
He against Arkansas, 10 of 21, 238, 2 touchdowns. Okay, everybody's like, well, that's just not very good. Okay, well, KJ Jefferson is supposedly this great NFL prospect, and he's nowhere near that. You look at Texas A&M, 321, 3 scores and an interception. They don't win the game without Jalen Milroe, right? You look at the way that he has played, he has gotten better every single week after Texas. Every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And I agreed with his benching. I think that the maturity he showed out of it has been nothing short of spectacular. And he's at 1,397 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions for a guy that is every single snap he takes, he's getting better. Texas defensively is not – there's nobody on that defense that's average. Mm-hmm. There's not. And I think it is wild to me that you have a comment that says Alabama's not good. They are average with most talent. They are not average in their offensive line has issues, and I think their wide receivers are very young. Their wide receivers are very young.
Even if they were, though, 11th in the nation behind North Carolina, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that is, I think it is incredibly, it's wild to me that you want to say that, hey, they're just an average team. It's not like you look at Milroe's numbers. He's averaging about 10 yards of completion. So he's not just dinking and dunking, and he's not constantly throwing the ball down the field. He's reading defenses and working through his progressions. And somehow that's average. I don't understand. I think there's probably Alabama burnout.
100%.
People will probably never get over that.
Yeah.
They've been so dominant for so long. I think people like when they're down. There's nothing average about that defense. There's nothing average about Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
Nothing. Not a thing. So.
And, by the way, I think the other point that remains is, yeah, sure, it's only one spot in the poll, right, from 11th to 10th. But there's no way that North Carolina should be ahead of Alabama. I just can't see what justifies that. And I think this is what we do in sports. We are going to penalize Alabama for not having the opportunity to win another significant game before bowl season gets here. Yet we're not going to penalize the top 3 for having absolutely nobody on their schedule. And we're going to sit here and say that, Penn State or Ohio State putting up 40 or 60 points on some, terrible football team is some great accomplishment that's worthy of a ribbon and a medal.
How are you dropping Oklahoma a spot this week? Anybody check that out? Washington was up to number 5, which bumped Oklahoma down to 6. How is that possible? Yet you won't take Georgia and Michigan out of the top 2 spots, even though they have neither one of them really have played anybody. Michigan's schedule is embarrassing. It is East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers, Nebraska, Minnesota, and Indiana. They have not played a game where they've given up more than 10 points. And they're being rewarded for it. They will not play a game of significance until November 11th at Penn State.
Oh, what's Michigan Homer going to say? Oh, well, you're right, Monty. Our defense is incredible. We haven't played a game where we've given up more than 10 points. Well, yeah, who you playing?
It is a crime that Oklahoma dropped a spot. I could go up and down. Like the fact that Oregon is still in the top 10 and Alabama's outside looking in is wild to me.
Yeah.
Wild, because Alabama's done exactly what exactly what you wanted them to do, which was win games, and they're getting penalized for it. Yeah. It's absolutely wild. James, Oak State and Big 12 fan. Heisman, why is no one talking about Ollie Gordon? Because he hasn't earned it. You're on a mediocre football team at Oak State who doesn't have a quarterback, and you're putting up big numbers in games that are not of consequence. Heisman trophies are won in moments. And Ollie Gordon, as unbelievable as he was this weekend, running and receiving for 100 each, that's spectacular. He's not a Heisman Trophy candidate. And this is similar to what I said about Brock Bowers at Georgia, who, by the way, is out 4 to 6 weeks now with tightrope surgery in his ankle, which means he almost broke his leg, unfortunately. But the Heisman Trophy is won in moments. And there are very few moments of consequence for Ollie Gordon. Yet they're all over. If you watch the Oregon-Washington game, Michael Penix just made throw after throw after throw after throw.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an unbelievable performance. And he got hit multiple times, made the right plays, stood in the pocket even after he got hit, made the right plays. Like, he was unbelievable. He was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's where you win. That's where you win the Heisman Trophy. A guy like Caleb Williams, hey, man, I love my Irish. I could have intercepted 2 of those 3 passes. Unbelievable. Bad decision-making in a showcase game on national TV. That loses you Heismans.
Yeah.
That's a moment just in the wrong direction, unfortunately. And here we are talking about Lincoln Riley and this defense again. And I just don't know. I don't know what you do. I mean, I give Lincoln Riley a lot of credit because he was pretty brutally honest about how bad SC's been after the game.
There's no magic pill for this, right? You go to work. You address the areas that are not showing up on Saturdays. You look at any personnel changes that you might make. What are you doing schematically? What are you teaching fundamentally? Because again, these little things, one of them changes, 2 of them changes, all of a sudden the whole thing can flip. The whole thing can flip. It is such a game of momentum. And so, yeah, we know what we got to do. Now we just got to put the work in and go do it. And the most important thing for our locker room right now is going to be ignoring all the outside noise, and we've got to believe in one another and what we're capable of, and we got to stick together. This group is more than capable. Now we got to go do it. We got to go make the corrections. We got to go fix the things that we got to fix. We got to coach and play better. But is it in our power? Is it something we're capable of? I believe it to my core, and we're going to go fight our ass off to get it done.
And I give him a lot of credit. It's not like it's what I say every week about guys like Deion Sanders this week, just taking his team apart at the joints, dude. Like, you have to do that. And maybe this is part of the Dan Lanning conversation. Dan Lanning's got to own the fact that they should have kicked those field goals. Dan Lanning's got to understand that. And really, the interesting thing is guys like Mike Gundy, who's pretty much owned the fact that his quarterback situation was not good.
Because it's garbage.
And now it's kind of worked itself out. Like, he owned that early in the year. I give a lot of credit to – it's why I've criticized Joey McGuire at Texas Tech so much, because there's been what I feel like is a lot of spin and a lot of tweaks. And Lincoln Riley just told you they're not close. We're – like, you listen to Deion Sanders and you hear what he says. Listen to Deion Sanders taking his team apart.
There are times where you know what group is in, you know what group you're on, but you have a lapse of understanding in those crucial moments. Right now, we're not built for the moment. We're not built for the moment. Some of our players aren't built for the moment where they have to make a play, or they have to keep contained, or they have to make a block, or they have to get another yard. We're not built for the moment right now.
Just taking his team apart, and I'm here for it.
Yeah,
I'm absolutely here for it. I think it's exactly what you're trying to do, and I think it's one of those things where, man, listen, if you're not going to be honest about it, you're never going to improve. And I think one of the things that's so interesting about Deion Sanders is that they're not good. This loss to Stanford was embarrassing. And he straight up said, this loss to Stanford is embarrassing. And my players are not buying in. And my players are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then what's the next thing he said? As coaches, we're not doing our jobs. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Because I think this is the first week where we can really point at the defensive coordinator and the head coach at Colorado and say, hey, you guys didn't do the job. Because they should have absolutely, one, leveraged their timeouts better, and two, slowed the game down a little bit. And I don't know what Shedeur Sanders was looking at, another cat that took himself out of the Heisman race this weekend, throwing terrible interceptions that just, they had no business throwing that ball up in the air. Like, you either win or you lose. And you look at Oregon, they lost on bad coaching decisions. You look at Colorado, they lost on bad coaching decisions. You look at USC, the quarterback threw up pop fly interceptions, and you lost on coaching decisions. Like it's not this game. I think we try to complicate this game into some kind of chemistry set. And it's what we've talked about with Marcus Freeman at USC. If you're not going to have your dudes in the right place at the right time, which, again, you watch the USC game, they had guys running on and off the field as USC was snapping the ball. Again. It's how do you get a penalty if you're Marcus Freeman? How do you get a penalty for celebrating or you burn a timeout, which gave USC the opportunity to kick a field goal at the end of the first half?
Yeah.
Because you made a good play and we're going to go celebrate while USC's hurrying up to get to the line and you're going to be offside, so you got to call a timeout to help USC. How? Because you're undisciplined, because you're poorly coached.
Yeah, total lack of awareness in the moment.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It is absolutely wild to me. Let's see. Derek Roche says the loser of the Washington-Oregon game got respect from the AP. Both are still top 10. Yeah. It's exactly what we were talking about. It's amazing.
Oh, it's clear that they're both really good teams. I mean, that much is very clear coming out of that game. The conversation to me is not whether they're top 10 teams. It's whether they're college football playoff teams. I mean, that's for Washington and Oregon. That's what you're playing for. And I think that kind of win for Washington gives you all the storylines you need to jump into the college football playoff, assuming you win out. Right?
Yeah, and that's a big assumption because Washington, I think, has a much tougher road ahead. At Stanford, at USC, Utah, at Oregon State, Washington State. Like that is what happened to Washington State? Good grief. Maybe it's not what happened to Washington State. What in the hell is going on in Tucson? That they all of a sudden find themselves over 500 overall, 4-3. They're 2-2 in the league, and they dismantled Washington State on the Palouse, man. Did you guys see Fafita? And here's a question for you. What do you do with Jaden DeLora now? Because I got news for you. Noah Fafita's my dude. I'm not taking him out. 342 again. I'm guessing, wild guess, most people do not watch Arizona and Washington State.
Sorry, folks, that's what it is.
But I'm telling you, Noah Fafita, 232 against Washington, who now that looks like an unbelievable performance. 3 touchdowns and a pick. 303 yards and 5 scores at USC. In triple overtime, they lost that game. And now you go up to the Palouse and you win 44-6.
I'm for real.
And he throws for 342 and doesn't turn it over, only gets sacked once. Like, I'm not, sorry, Jaden DeLora, you're not getting your job back.
Nope.
It's over.
Nope.
Right? There's nothing else. UW fan Jim, Roma Dunze has the strongest hands in football.
Yeah, stud, dude. Absolute stud.
And isn't it wild to watch great wide receivers when the ball is in their catch radius? When it's in the area, forget it. And I'm not even talking about being on frame. I'm talking about within their ability to catch the football. And that was one of the most, and I don't want to go over the top with it. I think this Washington performance was one of the best wide receiver performances I've seen all year.
Yeah.
It was truly remarkable to watch guys like Roma Dunze, Jalen Polk. How many big catches is that kid going to have? Like, repeatedly. The Giles Jackson touchdown. Like, I felt like this was one of the best quarterback giving his receivers a chance to make plays who went out and made those plays. Mm-hmm. That was so impressive. And then, I mean, I don't even know how you look at the defensive numbers in this game and the absolute precision and discipline to keep Bo Nix from running all over you. I thought they were, and I think Bo Nix played a great game, but he ran for 14 yards and averaged 2 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Because the ends were really disciplined and stayed home, and the linebackers didn't over pursue. And I think very clearly, that was in the game plan. Like, you've got to, and I don't really feel like they had a spy on Bo Nix the entire game, but I thought it was the smart thing they did is they weren't trying to sack him necessarily every snap.
Nope.
They were trying to make him throw the ball to beat them.
Contain Bo Nix with your front seven and then play man coverage across the board. It's not a hard concept.
And he consistently took the check down. Consistently. Now, he completed, 33 passes. Only averaged 7 yards of completion. He took the check down.
And that's what I'm saying. Great defense doesn't mean you held him to 10 points.
Yeah.
A lot of times in big games, great defense means you made another play or you stayed disciplined within the scheme you needed to play to have a chance to win the game. Like, that's what great defense is about a lot of the time. And that's why I was so disappointed in Oregon, because I felt like, man, like, you guys are taking some risks you don't necessarily need to take. I wouldn't necessarily be blitzing Penix constantly. I would be making Penix make more decisions than normal. Make him, go through that progression and, check it down. Like, do to Penix what they did to Bo Nix, because when you do that, at least then you can control, you can mitigate all the bombs down the field. Make them check it down.
And Oregon only got home on Penix once. So all of that rushing, all of that disguise was for naught. And that was so impressive. That was such an impressive performance. And I think you look at what is ahead. I think the team now, one of the games we have to talk about is the Oregon State win over UCLA. I thought was for a spot in the Pac-12 title game. And we talked about that, and you wondered out loud, hey, is UCLA that team? Is UCLA the dark horse? They're not. But here's the question. Can Oregon State beat Washington and Oregon back-to-back to end the season? And that's asking an awful lot. And that Oregon game obviously is at Autzen. We saw that last year at Reser. And, I mean, you're asking an awful lot. But, boy, tell me Oregon State doesn't have everything in front of them to play for. And you're going to look back at that shootout loss to Washington State and really be scratching your head, because they were simply a better team than UCLA. They were just better. Oregon State was I don't even think it was much of a game.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see how all of this plays out. Very, very interesting to see. Tarrant County boy says, Mullet Man, I'm 60.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he is. But, hey, to James's point, Ollie Gordon's really impressive. And I think when you don't have a standout quarterback, an alpha, you better have somebody, and they've got Ollie Gordon now. And that's an impressive win.
Yeah.
Has anybody looked at the Big 12 standings? Great win for TCU. Absolutely dismantling BYU. But hey, all of a sudden, Iowa State and Oklahoma State are right there at the top of the table. And they're both one-loss teams in the conference. Now, let's not kid ourselves. Oklahoma State has a mountain to climb. You're going to West Virginia, Oklahoma, at Houston, and BYU to end the season. BYU is, I think if that game's in Provo, boy, that's a different conversation. Yeah, but it's not. It's in Stillwater.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as long as Ollie Gordon's healthy, this team can win every game that they're in.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see them fight. I mean, they're better than Cincinnati, you would think.
Yeah.
UCF is so damaged. Maybe Houston's got a chance to really put some hurt on the Pokes. I don't think so. I just think the way that they're playing hard. There's no other way to say it. Oklahoma State's playing hard football right now.
Yeah.
And they're just beating you physically. Matt Hergert says Oregon would beat the brakes off Alabama in a game right now.
Okay, that's just an uneducated take. Next comment.
Do you guys watch Alabama football?
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm not trying to be an asshole about it, or excuse my French. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I'm just curious. Do you watch Alabama football? Because to say that Oregon would beat the brakes off of Alabama, Oregon plays a very favorable style for Alabama's defense. So there will be no beating the brakes off of Alabama.
Yeah. Not
by Oregon anyway. I just disagree with it. Not a fan of the Ducks, just reality. Matt, with all due respect, I mean, that's your opinion. And I don't think you're wrong. I just have a very different opinion, having watched a ton of Alabama football And I spend a lot of time on Sundays when we're sitting around watching the NFL. I'm watching tape from Saturday, and I see Jalen Milroe becoming a real problem at quarterback. And their defensive line at Alabama, they're coaching boys up down in Tuscaloosa.
Because they know they need to.
Because that defensive line is getting better and better and better. And I think Bo Nix would here's the other thing coming out of this Washington game. The secret sauce is out on Bo Nix. They cannot beat you throwing the check down. Bo Nix is going to have to learn to have the courage to throw the ball down the field, in the middle of the field, between the numbers. Oregon's going to get limited because I think that's really how Washington won the game. Is they really limited them. Uncle Filthy says, can't wait to see Oregon State beat Washington and shut everybody up. That's going to be a game, and that game's at Research, so that's going to be pretty good. T-Duck, Kyle, what's the latest then? Pac-2 for 2 years? I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what that is. J-Rod, how the heck are you? Well, this is what happens when you have a sport that completely relies on subjective rankings to determine who plays for championships.
Truly.
You're not wrong about that. You're not wrong about that. Kyle Wilson, Washington beat Oregon more impressive than Oklahoma beating Texas. No. No, actually it's not.
Oklahoma, before that game, had no business winning that game. Like, let's be clear. Nobody saw that coming. And then to come out and grind Texas out, to have Dylan Gabriel drive the ball down the field on the last possession and win the game, nobody saw that coming, dude. And it immediately catapulted them into the top 5 before this week, and it catapulted Dylan Gabriel right into the Heisman conversation. And going into the Washington and Oregon game, these two were even. These two were playing for, hey, who's going to have a shot to try to do the impossible and go undefeated in the Pac-12?
And I think the way the Blue Bloods schedule their seasons, which has always been a major problem in the Pac-12, Oregon and Washington have a very steep hill to climb to make the playoff. I would say even to make the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah.
And I look at Oregon and Texas, that day in the Cotton Bowl was for a spot in the college football playoff. Because I don't think either one of them is going to lose again until they play each other in the Big 12 championship game.
Yep.
So I don't think there's any chance Washington beating Oregon is more impressive than Oklahoma beating Texas. I disagree with that wholeheartily. But what do I know, right? Cam Harrison says, good afternoon, guys. Cam, what's up? Good to see you. The Todd Father says, ISU lost to Ohio because we had norovirus. I wasn't going to bring it up.
Makes me want to puke.
But now we've lost to Iowa by 7 and killed by OU second half with all underclassmen on offense. Great sign. Yeah, I mean, there's the character that's being shown in Ames is pretty impressive. It is. It's hard to argue that what Iowa State's doing now is, and the thing that I would have said to Iowa State back all those weeks ago now is you probably should have popped a buckshot.
Yeah, I mean,
and you would have gotten over the norovirus, right?
The norovirus.
Join me right now in hitting a buckshot. You know, we do it every day right about this time, usually 20 minutes ago, but the comment section has been lit. Good to see you guys. Let's hit a buckshot. There you go. 200 milligrams of naturally sourced caffeine with a bunch of brain food. No, it did not help me not play the worst golf of the season Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Terrible golfing weekend. But it did knock out a headache yesterday, which it's great for, because not only is it caffeine that's naturally sourced, but it's also a bunch of brain food combined to make one of the best energy supplements you're ever going to use. And that's what I love about Bucked Up. I say it all the time. You know what? It's excellent ingredients that make an excellent product that just does what it says it's going to do. There are no big spikes and no big drops. It's just level energy to get you through the rest of your day. You got that big report. You got a big phone call. You got a big sales pitch. Maybe you got a long drive home and you're tired. Hit a buckshot and get done what needs to get done. And I'll tell you right now, if you don't want to take my word for it, in the description below, go get the shaker cup. There's a free Bucked Up shaker cup, and I'm telling you, they're the best in the business. They've got the post with the little blender ball on there, so it doesn't flop around, make a big mess. They're the best shaker cups you're ever going to own, any color you want, and you get 3 supplement samples of your choice. So if you're a pre-workout guy, I banged that Banff pre-workout this morning at 5. I was up in the gym, hit a big leg day today with Mrs. Monty, got some shoulder pressing in. It was awesome. Thanks to my friends at Bucked Up. I use their pre-workout every day. I use their 6-point creatine every day. Go get it in the description below. Get the free samples. Hook it up. BuckedUp.com.